Why is everyone so bloody positive about 45 drives? It's a bloody good question. Welcome to the Raid Room today, and much like our other videos, it's just going to be me talking to you one-to-one for the better part of 10 to 20 minutes, so let's crack on. Let's face it, when it comes to the different brands in the world of network attached storage and alternatives to cloud, be it a larger business or a small-scale home user, I think very few brands have the positive rep right now of 45 drives, which, once you really step back and look at it, seems a bit odd. Because if you wanted to be really objective about this, their systems are stupidly expensive compared to some of the ones you can get coming out of China. On top of that, a lot of the pre-built solutions, particularly ones like this, the HL8, which arrives with a 2.5 gig ready, I think 8-core Ryzen processor there inside, there's a lot of better options in the market in terms of hardware power for your money. And on top of that, although the cases are really, really nice and unique and well designed there, I will say the software is nowhere near as polished as something like a Synology DSM or a QNAP QTS. Indeed, most users go out and buy these, and although you can use their Houston operating system, there's not really an operating system, it's more of like a layer or a skin or whatever with extra options on top of Cockpit. It has to be said that most users buy these, particularly the larger systems like the Storinator and more, and they use third-party operating systems. They use your TrueNAS, they use maybe Unraid. So why on earth is a brand that arguably is doing a lot of things wrong compared to a lot of options in the market do so well in terms of PR, in terms of its reputation? Well, number one, they're one of the few ready-built, burn-in test NAS brands in the market that are so loud and proud about third-party software utilization. Whether it is you buy just the case and a PSU that's been burnt in, or you buy a pre-built solution, they have got no qualms about heavily recommending the use of third-party software without invalidating any of the support that they provide. Next up, and this is a big one, they're Canada-based with another base of operations with a partner based in America there. Now that is important for some businesses, whether you're looking at global trends towards tariffs and more, or you're looking at businesses where they cannot or do not wish to work with overseas parties for a procurement a lot of their hardware there. That makes them extremely appealing, because you would be amazed how few brands there are that genuinely work out of Canada and the US. Great example, a lot of US companies are heavily in bed with Unified products. And I like Unified products. I talked about them more on the channel in the last year since they entered into the world of NAS, but I've been quite familiar with their hardware for a while. However, most of their kit comes out of Vietnam. It comes out, I believe, of Singapore as well. It comes out of Eastern regions. Even though the company has a vibe and a feel, and I believe their headquarters and more are all based in the US, the majority of that hardware is built overseas. Now, arguably, like this one, the HL8, the pre-built solution, you know, it's got an Aurora, I think it's an MSI motherboard inside of the pre-built solution. They didn't make that. And arguably, they could have gone away and got some Chinese motherboards and CPUs and got a better value for money. But they went with branded components inside, and I think a lot of users quite like that. But ultimately, they are a lot more US and Canada based than any of the other brands that we talk about. And I think that is a large part of the reasoning behind having on-site support, having definitely a one-to-one relationship with the brand that some brands may not feel like. Now, if you look at something like a Synology or a QNAP, they have offices in the US, they have offices in Europe, they have lots of offices all over the place. And it wouldn't surprise me, by the way, if 45 Drives starts opening bases of operations elsewhere, given that groundswell of popularity, but particularly as procurement of IT hardware around the world is starting to get a little dicey, let's put it like that. But the other reason that 45 Drives has got such a glowing rep is to do with the way they engage. Now, this is something, again, is a bit inside baseball, a bit like the video I did recently about Ugreen. But the way they engage, they've got things like the Creators Summit. They invite people to their production facilities. They speak directly with a lot of hands-on system integrators. Again, people like Tom from Lawrence Systems. There's a lot of back and forth with them. that level of engagement with a lot of hands-on, and particularly people that receive a lot of feedback from end users, is weirdly a lot rarer than you think. Even when you go down the road to big Seagate and WD, who are, I believe they must have crossed into the $10 billion mark and more, these brands rarely get real-world feedback from real-world users in such a manner. They will use surveys, they'll use targeted surveys online, which again, the way the door is found from the end user will impact massively the level and type of feedback you receive. Whereas working with people that aren't only system integrators but also engaged with an audience already, 45 Drives in a way have offset and edge procured a lot of the feedback and knowledge and what people want from their systems from genuine users in a way that most brands could stand to emulate. And again, I think that forms a big basis of why you hear such positive things about them, because arguably they listen a lot more than a lot of brands out there. Now, we also have to acknowledge that in terms of the hardware, what you are getting doesn't feel as competitive as some options in the market. It is competitive once you go up, which is going to bring us into our last point in a moment, but still, once you compare it against, say, this versus a Synology 1825 Plus, something I've done, or you're comparing it against some of the straight out of China options out there, obviously this is going to come across a lot more expensive. It's going to seem a lot, the company themselves are going to be a little bit more stodgy. Think back to the old IBM era kind of stuff. But moving beyond that, I've spoke to a lot of people while doing consultations and spoke to a lot of people while being on site doing support jobs. And I'll say right now, when it has come to a brand that has needed, for example, flash solutions, great example, when they're looking at large-scale flash solutions, they have been given quotes from manufacturers and from industry integrators that are enormous compared to the quotes they receive from 45 Drives. You really often find that the quotes provided by 45 Drives to companies looking at large-scale flash solutions are incredibly competitive. Look online, look on Reddit. If I found any, I'll link to them below, or I might even put them on screen. I try to avoid that with the raid room videos. But the quotations for the larger scale stuff is really affordable, and they even include a lot of the storage drives and the burn-in as well. And that reputation within that part of the industry is pretty bloody spotless. Like a lot of brands, however, and by the way, I'm referring to your net apps as well and EMCs and stuff that are pushing down, those higher echelon enterprise tiers are now finding they've got to push down into the large-scale enterprisey prosumer tiers little by little, while at the same time you have people like Synology that are trying to reprofile themselves into that affordable large-scale business bracket and with mixed results. Whereas 45 Drives seemingly started in that space and are now expanding up and down simultaneously. And that needs to be acknowledged as a big part of why 45 Drives has such a glowing rep when you look at online, because they are appeasing to a lot of bases. They're being very targeted about it. They've not gone global in the way that some brands have tried to. And having all of their base of operations, right the way down to construction being US based, means they can control with vertical integration the amount of money being spent. And it means it makes a very solid product, arguably more affordable, when you try to buy something like this coming out of the East. This has been a video about why 45 Drives has grown in reputation and why they have such a glowing rep online, when arguably at a glance there are things about the brand that shouldn't keep them there. Again, the price point, again, some of the hardware in some of the pre-built solutions. Bottom line, are they a brand right now that can take out a Synology, a QNAP or whatever? No. But at the same time, I don't think that's what they're trying to do. I think they're quite happy where they are, slowly growing upwards and downwards and living by their reputation. Now, are you used a 45 Drive solution? Let me know below. But right now, the reason I'm continuing to talk about 45 Drives for the rest of this year is as they roll out more prosumer solutions, definitely not home solutions, I do think 45 Drives is retooling. I think as a brand, they are definitely flexing their muscles into other areas, and as long as they do it in the way they've done thus far, I do think the brand is going to do well. But let me know what you guys think. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed the raid room today. Bit of a shorter one than usual. It's still a lot of talk, isn't it? Let me know what you guys think. But apart from that, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.